Good morning and good afternoon for colleagues in different parts of the world, and good evening for some of the colleagues coming from the States and other parts of the world. My name is Irvin. I'm the Master of Ceremony today for this particular event, and welcome to OTEA, which is the Overseas Taiwan Engineers Association. We are a non-profit organization that get all the engineers from Taiwan together, and then we build a network for everyone. We have colleagues from the States, Canada, Japan, and then Taiwan, and we have colleagues from Australia and New Zealand. I'll briefly introduce myself. I'm an associate professor at Griffith University, and I'm also the director international, and I'm also trained in Taiwan and then moved to Australia back in 2001. And then today, we have our fourth event that we'll be introducing a topic with becoming a chartered engineers and working in Australia from a native Taiwanese perspective. Today, we have our speaker, Dr. MingHung Chen. He is a chartered engineer in Australia, but I'll let the moderator have a brief introduction and an in-depth introduction about our speaker today. Before I hand over, I'll just have a brief introduction about our moderator today, Mr. Terry Wang. Terry has a wide range of experience based on his CV. He has a strength in many, he has participated in many other projects. He is involved in infrastructure projects like bridges, highways, railways, even like mass rapid transit subway system. And he was also involved in building and commercial construction projects. And then in many of those, he also included many of the commercial projects as well. And he is now residing in New Zealand. He is one of the pioneers from Taiwan that has moved overseas from Taiwan, starting from South Africa. Then he was involved in many other projects in many other countries, and then ended up in New Zealand, and then having a very, very wide range of experience. He has a very, very great career in terms of planning, and now he's more involved in project management and delivery of the projects that he's now doing. And our organization, OTEA, has a Facebook page. If you're not yet a member, I do encourage you to join us as a member, because we are non-profit, but we are building a network connecting all the engineers from Taiwan together, and in letting everyone to know us more about what we do overseas and how our journey moving from Taiwan to Australia, or journey moving from Taiwan to US or to New Zealand, just to share a little bit of our experience with how we become an engineer and also chartered engineers in different countries. So I think but we do have a introduction earlier that you have the links, and I do welcome you today, particularly to this particular event. So I will hand over the time to our moderator, Terry. Do you want to have a brief?
All right. Thank you, Elwin. I mean, just sort of the old goose, over the hill, after 32 or maybe 33 years, in this journey. I started my job at a racer, which was a state-owned company. That time I was building a Taipei, railway station from Taipei to Wanhua. So then I got a scholarship, to study in South Africa. After 2 years in South Africa, I have worked for South Africa, sort of the state-owned company. So I think today, as a moderator, I will try to emphasize, some of the regulation and all the pathway for Ming, to give a more detailed brief, discussion, for those journey, for him, I think in New Zealand and in Australia, the system are more or less the same, So Ming eventually coming from a very interesting background and starting this, I would rather say, sentimental journey, in New Zealand or in in Australia, because it's pretty much down under, and most Taiwanese original all go to the States, So in New Zealand, Australia is different brand new world, for them, because I was in South Africa, so therefore the Commonwealth system is more or less the same, For me, I don't have too many hurdles or too much impact, Once you qualify a charter membership in South Africa, you can qualify here. But for those Taiwanese graduates, certainly it does take some efforts and some know-how, to get through. So I think I'm not the pivot for today's webinar. So I would like Ming, to carry on more the details. Ming is graduating from Taiwan National University, right? And now has the strength in sort of the structural reinforcement for the bridges, that kind of stuff. And also, Ming, you also pass all the competency, qualification and evaluation. You also write some papers. You have attended those different interviews with the professional bodies, so you can share those sentimental journey. I call sentimental journey. It's not easy. You got to have the local network to pull you through those professional body. Because we belong to the different professional body, but I believe more or less the same. So I hand over to Ming. So Ming, you can take over here for our Taiwanese fellows. All right. So let's work on Ming. Yeah.
Thanks, Terry. It's my great honor to present this topic, becoming a chartered engineer and working in Australia from a native Taiwanese perspective. Okay, my name is MingHung Chen. Today's presentation, basically, I would like to talk about the difference between Taiwanese culture and Aussie culture. So in Taiwan, people call me Dr. Chen, and in Australia, everyone call me Ming. So I think that's the one difference. Okay, my presentation contains 3 parts. First one, I would like to introduce the assessment system for charter status. Charter status is like a professional engineer. If you got the charter status, you can use the title C-PEN. And charter status is a professional credential recognized by government, business, and the general public world. It's a career-long obligation to maintain competence in the chosen practice area. So the system is based on peer-assessed against industry recognized standards. So that's the difference from system here to Taiwan, because there's no examination needed here. However, in Taiwan, we know an engineer needs to pass the professional and the technical exams hosted by examination yuan to become a registered professional engineer. That's very, very difficult, so I can't pass it. Okay, there are many organizations are authorized to accredit charter status. The Institution of Engineers Australia, EA, is the largest one. EA with over 100,000 members. This is the largest professional body for engineers in Australia. It's also a designated authority for assessing skills and competence related to engineering occupations for migration to in Australia. There are many areas of practice, such as civil, geotechnical, and structure, and many others. In the assessment system, the kernel part, I think, is the Stage 2 Competency Standards. That's about the profession's expressions of the knowledge and skill base, engineering application abilities, and the professional skills, values, and attitudes that must be demonstrated in order to practice independently or unsupervised. So the point of getting chartered is not how well the professional knowledge you hold, but it's can you finish your work independently or unsupervised? In the stage 2 competence, there are 4 units, and 4 units and the 16 elements included. The 4 units are the personal commitment, obligation to community, value in the workplace, and the technical proficiencies. And there are all the 16 elements here. So you need to provide evidence to demonstrate you have achieved all of these 16 elements from your working experience in narratives form and no longer than 700 words. Demonstrate you are proficient in each element of competency. Write concisely and in the first person. Say, I did this instead of we did this. Tell assessors what you did, why you did it, how and when, with whom. You are going to use this experience to convince the assessors that you have achieved proficiency, that you have the capability to practice without supervision and can help others to develop his capability. Every competency claims need to be verified by a person joining that experience with you. So, for example, have you ever have this kind of experience, like number 7, meet legal and regulatory requirements, or number 6, identify, assess, and manage risks, or number 11, judgment. All the things must, as I mentioned, you have to tell assessors, I did this, but not our team. So it's pretty challenging. For this competence standards, I spent about 3 months to complete this work. So depends how long about your working experience. Less than 5 years, maybe too early to start. So at this stage, it's better for you to plan for your future. And between 5 to 14 years, you can get chartered, get started. Over 15 years, that's another way to get chartered by alternative pathway. Therefore, my advice is, if you are interested in applying charter status, think about, have you had enough working experience to cover all the 16 elements of competency? If no, try to find opportunity to join more challengeable tasks instead of doing maybe simple but routine work. So you need to be prepared. Another regulation is about the continuing professional development, CPD. So before you apply the charter, you need to have accumulated more than 150 hours of CPD. In Australia, the CPD includes 8 types. So the first one is tertiary courses. Type 2, short courses, workshop, conference, like today's webinar. Type 3, learning activities in the workplace. Type 4, private study. Type 5, serves to the engineering profession. So like being a member, panel member, interviewer, reviewing publications, or mentoring. And I know many of Taiwanese engineers usually participating in the technical standards. Type 6 is preparation and the presentation of material for courses, conferences, seminars, and symposia. So today I can claim some CPT hours because I'm a speaker. Type 7, employed in tertiary teaching and or academic research. Type 8, others. In Taiwan, what I know, maybe only recognize the type 2, the conference workshops, like that. Okay, next one, I would like to show you guys the certificates I'm holding now. So I'm a member of Engineers Australia, a chartered professional engineer. These two are issued from Engineers Australia. And the third one, I'm the registered professional engineer of Queensland, because that's regulation for people, for engineer working in Queensland, you have to be a registered engineer. And the last one is a National Engineer Register. So that's all the certificate I'm holding now. Okay, so move to the second part. I would like to introduce some Aussie engineering culture. Okay, work versus life. In Australia, some people may start to work from 5 a.m. Still 8 hours per day. So when you in the early morning, you can see many vehicles on the road. They start to work maybe before 5 o'clock. Generally, no works on weekends. And if you need to work on weekends, overtime hour rate could be 1.5 to double paid. And family is always above work. So work and life balance is better, I think, than in Taiwan. And another one important thing is about the work health and the safety regulations. So this is the law. Under the WHS regulation, you are required to eliminate the risk or to reduce the risk so far as it is reasonably practicable. Safe work method statement is to enable supervisors, workers, and other persons to understand the requirements that have been established to carry out the work in safe and healthy manner. It sets out the work activities in logical sequences and identifies hazards and describes the control measures. Job safety environmental analysis or job hazard analysis are the similar documents. Another one is the Take5. Take5 safety checklist is the tool used to identify health and safety hazards before starting work in the site. Performing health and safety checks using the Take5 procedures. So that's stop, look, assess, control, and monitor to help our workers and the contractors mitigate exposure to hazards and health risks. And every day before the work, we have to attend the pre-start meeting. Another one is the safe design. It means the integration of control measures early in the design process to eliminate, or if this is not reasonably practicable, minimize risks to health and safety throughout the life of the structure being designed. So this is very emphasized part before you start to work in the construction business. Everyone need to know all of this. So here is one example of Take5. So here you can see the top left-hand side is the work details. Then what's the hazard ID checklists. So just take that. And the next one is the hazard control checklists. And section 4, the potential risks and the determining controls. So you have to describe the potential risks and the phase, step, activity, and the risk control measures. This is another example, similar, the job hazard analysis. So you got a permit to work, and also again take the potential risk, and everyone have to sign on the checklist. So before the work, induction is prior to a new employee starting work. Get all the training you need to do your job to ease you into your new job. Some induction is conducted online for a couple hours. Some need to attend a physical meeting at a scheduled time. In this slide, you can see I got the induction for everyone project, so spend a lot of time. And our MC, Dr. O, told me last month he spent an hour on induction before entering the construction site. He just went there for a couple minutes of it, but an hour of induction. If you don't have a ticket, you can't start. So that's the tickets now I have. So the first one is the construction induction. So everyone do the construction work need to finish this induction. This one is work safety at height, and this one high risk work. This take allow me to operate the EWP. Sometimes I need to walk down to the main hall, so I need to finish the training to get the confined space ticket. And when we work on the railway, we need the railway industry worker, safety access the rail corridor, and working in electrified territory. So that's all the tickets I need for working in the railway. Last one is first aid. So many tickets. There's a safety regulation. Always put a harness on. So from these four photos, the first one, that's EWP, or in United States, we call it cherry picker. So yeah, of course, we need to wear harness on before entering the EWP. This one is the large traffic sign on the highway. So when we do inspection for this kind of structure, we need to put the harness. The third one, that's the timber boardwalk beside, and there's a slope. I just get down to check the underneath of the timber board. So I put my harness on to make sure it's safe. The final one. That times I did an inspection in the main hall. So you can see I have a head torch, hard head, and this is the life vest or personal floating device, and the weight and a harness here. So that's the equipment I have to wear before I start to do a job. Let me give guys an idea what's the training and the certificate expense. So the certificate the training course depends the length. It's 1 day course or 2 days course, and the certificate, that's the annual fee for each certificate. It's pretty expensive. The last part, I will talk about something from my personal working experience in Australia. I got a habit. Every time I stay a place overnight, then I make a record on Google Map. So that's the place all over Australia I've ever been. Many trips, some trips for holiday, but most of them, especially in Queensland, are for the business travel. And after travel to so many different places, I think lifestyle in rural area is much different from what you see in urban area. And you can see many area is not for tourists. It's not popular for tourists. So the lifestyle there is quite different. People has different thought from city to country. Most people are friendly and no discrimination ever experienced to me. Many people said listening to a different accent is a challenge to us. Yes, in different area, rural area people, their accent is quite different, and also from race to race. I think it's the same as in Chinese speaking. So like northern Taiwan, central Taiwan, and the southern Taiwanese, and even the foreigners all speak Chinese in different ways. In addition to the accent, that's the writing we have to recognize. So in this example, the handwriting is pretty clear. It is not too difficult to recognize. So how about this one? Let me take an example. So for this two box, can you see what's that? The first one is operated by qualified operator. The bottom one, use bolus plus flagging to designate drop zone. Okay, one more example. This is example just from last month. Not 62, that's G2, snapped at E2, linked to LV only immediately, scoring at apartment 2, no giveaway, GW giveaway provision, no FHI, and the final one is XGP both purchase. About engineering education, it's a lifelong study attitudes, and it's off-campus experiences, and it's the teamwork. And when you need to do some decision by yourself, what you can do is be prepared to explain your work and the reasoning. So always keep in mind when you do some make some decision, you need to be prepared. If someone come back to ask you, then you can explain. And in Australia, it's a popular culture about the mentorship and the apprenticeship. So intern is required in bachelor degree, and mentorship is popular among senior and retired engineers. So when professional engineers they get retired, many of them come up to mentorship other junior engineers. Mentorship is classed as a CPT credits, so you can claim for that. When I start to work in Australia, my target is to do the bridge inspection because I did that in Taiwan for a decade. So I know bridge inspector is not a popular job in many countries. That means it's not easy to find an advertisement for this role. So how can I find a seat for myself? After a long time of job hunting, I collect some advice are very useful. So we need to think outside the box. There are many candidates for advertised roles. However, there are not many candidates for unadvertised advertised roles. There is room in the market for niche providers. Understand how to approach the hidden job. Everything here is systemized just in a different way. So you have to know the companies, they want ready-made adults, not babies. So you need to work on your weakness and show your strengths. Try to ask yourself, what's your strength and what's your weakness? Network is very important. So at the beginning, you can start or join a professional group that embraces similar related cultures, build a professional network around similar profiles, seek from them the possible introductions to companies you are interested in, and you can make friends through common hobby. Like me, I play squash, so I make many friends from squash, or attending volunteer organizations. So through sharing the hobby or attending the volunteer organizations, you can gain some local experience and to know local work culture. My experience, Australian people is keen to help others. So I know most of you have social media like Line, Facebook, and Instagram, but more useful should be LinkedIn. And I would say the most helpful is OTEA. Finally, I would like to share you some, I think, good words to me. You must agree you only live once. The only impossible journey is the one you never begin. You can't win if you don't play. If you do not ask, the answer will always be no. If you do not step forward, you will be always in the same place. Okay, thank you very much. That's all my presentation. If you want to contact me, that's my line ID there. Thanks, everyone.
All right. We got quite a few questions being typed onto chat box.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So perhaps you need to look at that one. First one is, do they actually recognize overseas experience? Such those experience back in Taiwan or somewhere else. So So perhaps you answer it first, then I can come up some my personal experience, from this question.
Okay, thanks, Terry. Definitely, that will be very helpful. But foreign working experience, I think that means international working experience. I just read an article. I will share all of you guys later, probably next week. The latest journal from Engineers Australia, the research said some Australia owners they don't value the international working experience. I will digest that article and share with you guys. Definitely, international working experience would be helpful, but probably not all the Australian people they are that kind of international. So some people they just know the things inside Australia. So when I applied the work, I showed my working space in Taiwan, and even I ever attended the bridge inspection training course hosted by United States FHWA. But they don't have the feeling, so could be helpful, but it's not a promise.
Okay, I think this depends on the individual, So back in Taiwan, the size of the infrastructures is relatively, larger than most of the Aussie projects,
That's
I
true.
think, I think before 2008, when Australia wasn't in a booming time. So this scenario apply in the New Zealand, So if you are writing, you build a certified stories high-rise building, in your CV, when you do your first interview, people will be looking at you. Wow, So perhaps you might be showing being a little bit overqualified, really being. Sorry about this. I think they also value local experience. So when I think 15 years ago, when I came to this bloody Kiwi land, they say, "Do you have a New Zealand experience?" I think this apply in Australia as well. They say, "Do you have Australian experience?" So, which in your mind, you probably say, "What the hell is a New Zealand experience? Or what the hell is a new Australian experience?" Can be. I did coach a guy. I want to mention what year was that, when we asked him to design some kind of culvert dam, it was only a 4 meters times 4 meters, for the simple structure. This boy graduating from Taiwan National University complained to me as, what the hell I need to design this small culvert dam, really? Because back in Taiwan, we just do the job, and give it a CECI. It's very simple. It depends on what kind of objective you want to do in New Zealand and in Australia. You want to immigrate, you just need to suck it up, and just do what they told you, So if you do what they told you, you perform well. You win a recognition. You get a friends, and once you get a friends, then you work easily. You don't have the friends, and then you got problem. Really. And it doesn't matter what kind of professional bodies, for the chartered engineer or quantity surveyor or construction professionals, my understanding, yes, they will look at your overseas experience, but they also emphasize the local experience. So to get a first job landing is going to enhance your local experience. I'm sure that's the way it goes. Urban, you probably can make out some. Yeah. Urban, you want to say something about this one?
Yes, I think basically there are a lot of changes now because Engineering Australia has now included many different type of pathway that you can become a chartered engineer in Australia, because Engineering Australia has signed up many mutual recognitions with different countries, and then there are more pathway that they can recognize your overseas experience as well. Yeah, but yes, when I started here 20 years ago, there were a lot of differences that getting into the culture, because the design concepts are different, and then they don't understand well enough with what we do in Asia as well. And you do find that there are different challenges getting to understand how the Australian engineers consider the design. In many ways, when I started my first career with a consultant in Brisbane, I do find that they're quite conservative in many ways in terms of the design, and they are not that open to new concepts or new technologies. However, I think what Ming has mentioned earlier is if you are interested in finding a career in Australia, you do need to engage yourself with many of these professional bodies. I've also started my career in terms of engaging with more of the Engineering Australia Queensland chapters, and then attend the seminars that they've organized, getting to understand how they practice and how they think, then build my own network. That's how I started my career in Australia. So basically, there are things that you need to understand. But Terry has pointed out one very important thing is your experience helps you with what you have done in Taiwan or many other countries, but the scale is very, very different. Even when you involved in many other different projects, like I was involved in projects in one of the Pacific Island, you will find that the scale over there is also very, very different. Compared to the scale, is probably smaller in size, but you need to understand the concept and how they consider those design. But again, many of these things comes back to the fundamentals. So the fundamentals that we have been trained in Taiwan are very, very strong, that we have a good knowledge of the structure, the geotech, and the hydraulics that we are being taught of. Sorry, I'm a civil engineer. So if you're not a civil engineer, probably you have a different view. But I'm a civil engineer. So basically for me, it's just structure, geotech, and hydraulics. Those are the key three main areas that I'm being trained to deal with. So basically, the overseas experience will very, very help. But sorry, I've taken a little bit of the time. I'll pass back to the Terry and Ming.
Okay, I think there is another question about sort of the point system in Australia in terms of immigration. This question also apply for New Zealand. So I probably answered the New Zealand side at first. In New Zealand, I think of 15 or 20 years ago, it was a very small market. So the quota for the immigrants has been always pending on the different government, led by the different party. So national could be a little bit, encouraging more immigrants. Whereas the labor is a little bit conservative, so it's up and down. But I would say, in New Zealand, if you have a job and you are Taiwanese engineer, and you graduate from a certain standard of the university for those charter membership, you sooner or later, as long as you work hard, you will get it. And it also depends on what kind of the employer. I spent my whole life in a general contractor and that kind of the business. So even I passed all the exam, in Taiwan as a civil engineer. So I never go back that track, So it depends on what kind of employer you want to work for, If you want to work for the contractor, then charter membership may not be a must. You probably apply for quantity surveyor or construction or manager, that kind of status, But if you want to work for the consultancy or work for the government agency, charter engineer certainly is a big plus, for you, So depending on which job you landed for yourself. So in New Zealand, if you get a job and you pass all the language, which is IELTS, that is different from the States, but they always have the TOEFL, so it won't be difficult. It's just a matter of the time. It's also age, If you, I think Ming and Erwin, if a guy came to Australia before the 45, it's more beneficial. If you came after 45, then the entry level is a little bit tough, right? I think so.
Yes.
Yeah. So depends on what kind of age. If you over 45, then it could be a little bit bumpy ride, because you pretty much yeah. I wouldn't say it's not impossible, but normally the flexibility happens when you were young, and you can adapt yourself more quickly into the environment. So I think this is my understanding about the immigration system. So in Australia, certainly is is larger, than New Zealand. So they might take more immigrants, compared to New Zealand, and also the pay is good. So I did a Taiwan high-speed railway, and I got to know quite a few guys working for Leighton. They say, "Why you want to go to this bloody Kiwi land? Whereas you can go to Australia." But because of my family ties, so therefore I ended up here. So I would say you probably look at Australia first, then look at New Zealand. However, two countries, most of the professional bodies are recognize each other, sort of in a reciprocal, agreement. So it doesn't matter working Aussie or working in New Zealand. We even for Kiwi guys, we cross the ditch. We can stay in the Aussie forever. It's same apply for Aussie as well. So depends on which country you want to go to. I and Jasmine, we are based in Auckland, so we are for the help, to give a sort of the guidance, if you need to have some kind of further understanding about New Zealand. And I think one of our members, Tony Shen, first time came to New Zealand, he came to my place a few times asking how to get a job. I say, you just need to work hard. After a few months, he landed a job. So landing a job is very important. Also, I think I emphasize this one a little bit much. You must be a good team fit. If you're not a good team fit, no matter which area, you won't get a successful, reference, as your referee in the future. So I think a lot of guys, from China, because of the one-child policy, they're very self-ego, So after a couple of years, they won't get that far, So good team fit is very important, This is my feeling. So I think Irvin and Ming probably can express that kind of consideration as well. You got to be a good team fit, good personality. Otherwise you couldn't move. Really. This is my feeling. Yeah. Okay, Irvin, Ming, you want to polish this one for a little bit comments? Yeah.
Ming, you're the speaker today, so
yeah, you are the speaker.
Yes.
You must be a good team fit. This one.
Yeah, and just review. There are many other questions. Very interesting. Probably, we can go to the next question.
Yeah. Next question was that I'm so impressed about today's lecture. So I have a few questions below. How could a chartered engineer enhance our career later in Australia? What do you enjoy most about working Aussie, which compare with Taiwan? Yeah, can you answer that part? Yeah.
Yep, sure. So the chartered engineer, some position they need to be chartered, then you can apply. So like the principal engineer, I saw the TMR. TMR is like the highway bureau in Taiwan. So TMR is the transportation ministry in Queensland. Yeah, when they got some position, you need to get chartered, then you can apply. So that means definitely would be helpful for you to get especially for some senior position. The most enjoy Let me show you an example. When I talk to my business partner, the only engineer, I asked him, do you need to have some meeting, go to restaurant or some kind of social activities to do the business, to get a job? He said, never. So you just do the job. You don't need to do the social activities with the client, with your customers. So everyone just focus on the job. They just try to do the work, do the work best, and don't need to spend effort to think about us. I think that's the difference between the cultures, and so it's pretty clear. So back to your proficiency, are you good enough to deliver a good quality work to your client? Yeah. So I think that's the most enjoyable part for me to work in Australia.
When you want to share something, or should I share the New Zealand part?
I think if you can share the New Zealand part, yes.
Okay, New Zealand is quite laid back. I remember 15 years ago, every Friday we have sort of the area meeting because at that time I was working for sort of the tier 1 contractor. The tier 1 contractor in New Zealand is actually probably tier 3 or tier 4 contractor back in Taiwan in terms of turnover, whatever. So Friday afternoon, somewhere around about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, one of the project manager is going to report about the status. The area manager is our boss. He said, got it. Let's go for a beer. Got it. Let's go for a beer. He just said, got it. Both of them are British, really. But they've been in New Zealand for a long time. He said, Donald, got it. Let's go for a beer, really. Which means he's not interested in, in carrying over the meeting, more for such a long time, He just want to. So, yeah, I just give you the story about New Zealand, Australia. So every Friday, I think for the general contractor, I don't know the university or academic institute, probably after 4 o'clock or 4:30. You want to reach somebody, it's always a message. It's not like in Taiwan. I tell you what, in Taiwan, I run a business before, and I work for a tier 1, probably top 3 general contractor. I hardly went back, before 10 o'clock. Most of my nights are kind of the social activity, karaoke, blah 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 blah, and because I'm the business development manager, so you better ask yourself: you come to Australia or you come to New Zealand for what? If you are still enjoy karaoke, blah 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 blah, Ming, Erwin, I don't think Australia, New Zealand are your good option. No matter you want to be a charter engineer or whatsoever, So it's not your option. You better think about yourself. What kind of life you like? If you are pretty much entrepreneur, So I don't know. Ming is a self-employee. If you are pretty much kind of the entrepreneur, that type of the guy, Aussie or New Zealand, you might find some opportunity. However, the tax is also high, really. So it depends on what kind of life you want for yourself and for your family, So, and also, if you are working for consultancy, that's fine. You are still pretty much based in the city. But if you work for the general contractor like Leighton, dispatch you in a rural area, you don't want to see the kangaroo or kiwi birds, in the rest of your life, And if you are the single one, then sometime in the midnight you wake up, and you are asking yourself, what I'm doing here. That's how I was back in South Africa when I was late 20, So I think today's seminar is just give you some kind of the highlights, about Aussie and New Zealand. And if you are pretty much urban style people, and the lifestyle is different compared to Taiwan, so you better ask yourself more clearly. Otherwise you spend too much time. You want to do this, and there will be a regret for you. Really, that's what I thought. The rest of them just part of the life journey, as the Ming say. You step forward, you get it. Really, yeah. Okay, that's pretty much my side. Yeah. The next question is, Jesus one. Okay, hi. I asked about how to become a charter membership, right? Is that okay? I have council experience as a stone officer in Australia. I don't know how to answer that one. There's an Aussie question. Maybe Irvin and Ming can answer that part. Yeah.
I'll answer this one. I think basically, I also type in the chat box is Danny. The CPNG, being a chartered professional engineer, is like what Ming has listed, is a competency base. As long as your work experience as a council officer in stormwater related design, as long as you have those competencies being ticked off in that application, they will consider it. But you will need to look at how you document your experience as a stormwater officer and which part of it are relevant to the engineering experience. For example, designing the channel or a project management type of projects that you've been involved. So basically, you need to revisit working as a stormwater officer in the council. Which part of the project, what are the projects that you're involved in, and how relevant they are. So I would suggest that you consider revisit the work they've done in the past 3 years, and then list down each of the projects, and then find out which are the one that related to the competency that Ming has shared.
Yep.
Okay, there is another question. Somebody is asking, how might Taiwanese folks, get to Aussie or New Zealand in the first place? Who is going to respond to this question? Ming or Irvin? Or anybody else?
Yeah, I think I can share a little bit of my experiences. I started my career in Taiwan, and I've been involved in several projects. I think the largest one I've been involved is the land reclamation in Yunlin, where there's now a big factory areas particularly for oil and gas. Well, there are different things that you might consider in different part of your life. At that time was mainly I have considered that having a different career pathway. So particularly in some areas, you may get in a way in English we would say get stuck. Okay, you're stuck in your promotion. So you might reconsider which are the other options that you have. And basically, there's opportunities that came out that I would say, oh yes, okay, there is a work opportunity in Singapore, but also there are some of my friends that they have shared some of their life in Australia. So since then, I've then looked into how I apply to Australia, what are the point system, and then basically, if you intend to migrate to Australia, Australia is a country that open to many migrants from different parts of the world. So you might want to consider what is your skill sets that you have. I've shared a link, which is our Department of Home Affairs link relevant to the skill occupation in the chat box. So you can look at your occupation, whether you're a civil engineer or mechanical engineer, and the migration to Australia is basically based on a point system. So if you have the intention to move either to Australia or New Zealand, I would say the first step that you want to consider is taking an English test, because one of these criteria is meeting the English proficiencies. So I would suggest that you you look into preparing for the IELTS test, and then consider what are the point scales that you need to. IELTS test, basically you have a speaking, and then reading, and then writing, and then listening. So those are the four part of these tests that you need to get yourself into that to that application. The other one that you want to consider is what Terry has mentioned, is basically the age. If you're age 45 and above, unfortunately you don't get any extra points in your application. However, you might want to consider what are the skill sets that you have, and then think of whether you have that points, okay, to make you to be eligible to apply for this visa to Australia, to work to migrate to Australia. So basically, there are many considerations. For myself, is basically I was reconsidering my career in Taiwan at the time, and then looking at exploring other options, and then particularly in terms of promotion, you would start to revisit what is your career options that you have considered. And then some of us is many of my friends who moved from Taiwan, some of them are considering because of business, or some you have family reasons, and some even move here for their reasons for their children, because some of them they do find that probably the education in Australia might be very different from Taiwan. So there are many other considerations that you might need to think of. But my suggestion is going to Taiwan. The first thing you want to consider is the point system, and then think about how you prepare for the English, and then I have other options. Sorry, I've taken too much of your time.
No, it's all right. It's all right. All right. Ming, you want to make up some of your comments, for this question? Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Terry. I would like to thank Erwin and Vincent Lin helping me to answer a couple of questions in the chat box. Yeah, so I hope the question has been satisfied, been answered. Yeah. So for this question, I think Erwin have a very comprehensive answer to this question. So I would like to answer the question from Danny here. I know you are working in Tasmania now, so definitely you can start to prepare for your chartered status application. So like Erwin mentioned, you just think about, check out 16 elements. So back to your work to think about which part you can, in the future, during your application, you can put those experience for that element. It's better to start from now, because now you know which kind of work or activity you should attend, and you can get the experience to make that competency. Yeah, so get yourself prepared. Then that will shorten your application time in the future. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in the short later, and seeing you to become a next charter.
Okay. All right. I think we have answered all the questions, as posted onto the chat box. So, so as a moderator, I thank you for attending today's webinar, and also thank you for Ming's dedication to prepare those detailed, PowerPoint to share with the listener. Also, thank you for Erwin for sharing his experience. I don't think I have anything to share, because my experience is maybe different from others. But I just want to encourage all the Taiwanese friends, the can-do attitude is very important, So if you don't have a can-do attitude, then you're not getting anywhere, because people will ask you, can you do this? And I mean, in New Zealand, we always say, he can have the job, but can he do the job? So you must have the can-do attitude. So even you cannot do the job, you still need to have the can-do attitude when you attend an interview. If you don't have the can-do attitude, then you really get stuck, really. So so this is my final comments. Thank you for everybody joining. We are looking forward to having another round. Thank you for everybody's efforts. Thank you for Ming. Thank you for Irvin. Thank you for Edward as well. So a couple of you guys probably don't know, but I really appreciate your participation. All right. See you guys there. All right.
Okay. Well,
All right.
before everyone go, just again want to reiterate this. Thank you, Terry, for the experience that you've shared, because Terry has a wide range of experience working overseas from South Africa to New Zealand, which is very, very beneficial for us. And I would like to particularly thank our speaker today, Dr. MingHung Chen, for sharing his experience where he moved from Taiwan to Australia, and then getting his chairmanship, and then sharing a little bit of his way to get to work in Australia. And before everyone go, I would like to encourage people to stay on, because if you're interested, because there are many questions that we want to answer.
Okay.
But if you can't stay on in this particular chat, we will be sharing our extra times here. We can communicate in Mandarin if you.
Okay, we communicate in the Mandarin.
After
Okay, no
the
problem.
meeting,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
But it's just encouraging people to stay on. Like some other colleagues where you have shared some of the question that wasn't shared, wasn't answered. Like Oliver, I haven't answered your question yet, but I'll answer the questions later on in this. But before everyone go, I'll share my screen. We have our forthcoming event, okay, which is the next online event on the 21st of November. This will be presented by our colleague, Mr. Dr. Jay Lin, and the moderator, Dr. Kwang Yen Liu, and also the Master of Ceremony, Dr. Jun Yen Wu. So basically, I would encourage you to share these particular flyers with your colleagues. And the next one is this a link, okay, to our organization. If you are interested, send us an email. There's a link on our website, www.otea.network. There's a link for you to apply for the application. And most importantly, if you are on social media, please like us on Facebook. Join us on Facebook, because we do have a Facebook page that we share our experience. And I would like to thank Oliver to dedicate his time, and Ming to dedicate his time in terms of helping us to manage the Facebook page. And lastly we have a post-event survey. There's a link there. Okay, it's a form.gov, and then there's a long code there. If you have participated this particular event, we would like to hear from you. Please give us your feedback, telling us how do you think and what type of topics that you want us to share with you, because we do have engineers coming from different parts of the world. We have engineers from Taiwan that reside in Japan, Canada, US, New Zealand, Australia, and many other countries. So we would love to share our experience with how we moved from Taiwan to this particular country, and how we managed to get a job in this new home, that we would say. So we have an online networking event, which will be on the 7th of November, 2021. And then this is again organized at a time, which is 11 a.m. Taiwan Standard Time. But if you are free on this particular day, again, please join us, okay? All right, because we will be having our New Zealand Australian Club online networking that we will share experience. If you want to know a little bit more about myself, what I do in terms of research in geotech, because I'm an academic, but I also work as an engineer before. But I would love to share my experience, because I can share my experience of how I work as a consultant, moving to a government sector, then becoming an academic. But again, thank you very much for your time. Thank you today, and thank you all the colleagues today. thank you, all the colleagues